My name is Sophia. I'm 32 years old, and 3 weeks ago, my sister Emma called me a basement-dwelling code monkey in front of our entire extended family at my cousin's wedding. She laughed as she told everyone how I was still playing with computers while she was building a real career in marketing. What she didn't know was that the app she'd been obsessing over for the past 2 years, the one she posts about constantly on social media, the one that helped her land her current job, was something I created in my supposed basement. The look on her face when she found out will stay with me forever. But what happened next changed our family dynamics permanently, and honestly, it changed my life too. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been the one they dismiss while celebrating everyone else's achievements, this story is for you. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you're ready for some serious family drama, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love connecting with viewers around the world. I'm about to tell you exactly how one moment of truth turned years of quiet humiliation into the most satisfying vindication of my life. Trust me, you'll want to hear every detail of this. Growing up as the middle child in the Chen family meant mastering the art of being overlooked. My older sister Emma was the golden child, homecoming queen, sorority president, everything came easy to her. My younger brother Marcus was the baby everyone doted on. And me? I was the quiet one who spent too much time on computers. "Sophia's in her room again," became the family catchphrase. While Emma was winning debate tournaments and Marcus was scoring goals on the soccer field, I was teaching myself programming languages and building websites for fun. My parents, both traditional finance professionals, didn't understand what I was doing. They saw Emma's marketing degree from State University as practical, Marcus's business major as sensible, and my computer science path as, well, they never really said, but their silence spoke volumes. The pattern started early. Family dinners became Emma's stage to talk about her internships, her networking events, her latest boyfriend who worked at some prestigious firm. When I mentioned getting accepted into the accelerated computer science program at MIT, my mom smiled politely and asked Emma about her upcoming sorority formal. When I told them I'd been selected for a competitive summer internship at a startup in Silicon Valley, my dad nodded and immediately turned to Marcus to discuss his little league batting average. I stopped sharing after a while. What was the point? But here's what they didn't see. While Emma was posting Instagram stories from her marketing conferences and networking happy hours, I was building something real. During my junior year at MIT, I started working on an idea that had been nagging at me for months. I'd noticed how difficult it was for small businesses to manage their social media presence effectively. They either couldn't afford expensive marketing agencies or didn't have the time to learn complex platforms. So I started coding. Late nights in my dorm room, weekends in the computer lab, spring break while Emma was in Cancun, I was building what would eventually become Connect Pro, a streamlined social media management platform designed specifically for small and medium businesses. My roommate Jake thought I was crazy. "Soph, there are already social media management tools out there," he'd say, finding me hunched over my laptop at 3 a.m. again. "Not like this," I'd reply. "Not something that actually understands what small businesses need." I wasn't trying to compete with the big players immediately. I was creating something different, intuitive enough for a small-town bakery owner to use, powerful enough for a growing restaurant chain, affordable enough for startups operating on shoestring budgets. The interface I designed was clean, the learning curve was minimal, and the analytics were presented in ways that actually made sense to business owners who weren't marketing experts. During my senior year, I spent every free moment refining the platform. I conducted user testing with local businesses near campus, iterated based on their feedback, and slowly built something I was genuinely proud of. My professors noticed. I was invited to present at the Undergraduate Research Symposium, and my advisor encouraged me to consider the Startup Accelerator program. But at home, I was still just Sophia, playing with computers. Emma graduated that spring with a marketing degree and immediately landed a position at a mid-size advertising agency in Chicago. The family celebration was massive: dinner at the fanciest restaurant in town, a graduation party with relatives flying in from 3 states. She posted about it constantly. "So grateful for my family's support, ready to take on the corporate world, marketing maven in the making." When I graduated summa cum laude from MIT a few weeks later, I got a dinner at Applebee's and a card that said, "Congratulations on your computer degree." That summer, while Emma was posting about her new apartment in Lincoln Park and her amazing colleagues at the agency, I was in my childhood bedroom, working 16-hour days to launch Connect Pro. I'd managed to save enough money from various internships and freelance projects to bootstrap the initial development, and I was determined to have a working beta by the end of the summer. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was literally in the basement. We'd converted part of the finished basement into a home office years ago, and it had the best internet connection in the house. Emma's basement-dwelling code monkey joke had more truth to it than she knew, but probably not in the way she intended. By August, I had my beta version ready. I started reaching out to small businesses, offering free trials in exchange for feedback. The response was better than I'd hoped. Business owners loved how easy it was to schedule posts across multiple platforms, the automated analytics reports that arrived in their inbox weekly, and especially the customer engagement tracking that helped them understand which content actually drove sales. Word spread organically. I wasn't spending money on marketing. I was too busy improving the product based on user feedback. But satisfied customers started recommending Connect Pro to other business owners. By the end of 2019, I had over 500 paying subscribers. Emma, meanwhile, was posting about her incredible growth at the agency, though when pressed for details at family gatherings, her descriptions were always vague. "It's all about synergistic brand integration," she'd say, using buzzwords that sounded impressive but meant nothing. She'd gotten promoted to Senior Marketing Associate after 8 months, which she celebrated like she'd been named CEO. I was happy for her, genuinely, but I was also building something that was starting to generate real revenue. By early 2020, Connect Pro was bringing in $30,000 a month in subscription fees. I was reinvesting everything back into the platform: better servers, additional features, customer support staff. I hired my first employee, a customer success manager named David, who worked remotely from Portland. But at family dinners, Emma still dominated the conversation with stories about her latest campaigns and client presentations, while I sat quietly, picking at my food. When relatives asked what I was up to, I'd give vague answers about working on some tech projects. It felt easier than trying to explain something they wouldn't understand or appreciate. "Sophia's still figuring things out," became Emma's go-to line when extended family asked about me. She'd say it with this pitying smile that made my skin crawl. "She's really into computers, but you know how it is with tech stuff. So unpredictable." If only she knew that her unpredictable tech stuff was about to become the most predictable source of passive income she'd ever seen. The pandemic changed everything, but not in the way you might think. While Emma was complaining about working from home and how her agency was pivoting to digital strategies, small businesses were suddenly desperate for exactly what Connect Pro offered. Restaurants pivoting to takeout, retail stores moving online, service businesses trying to maintain customer relationships. They all needed help managing their digital presence, and they needed it immediately. From March 2020 to December 2020, my subscriber base grew from 800 to over 12,000. Revenue jumped from $35,000 a month to nearly $180,000. I hired 6 more employees, all remote, and started working with a business consultant named Sarah, who helped me structure everything properly as an LLC. The crazy thing was, I was still living in my childhood bedroom. Not because I couldn't afford my own place. By the end of 2020, I could have bought a house outright in most parts of the country. I stayed because I was so focused on growing the business that moving felt like a distraction. Plus, there was something satisfying about building a multi-million-dollar company from the same room where Emma used to tell me I was wasting my life on computers. Emma's pandemic experience was different. Her agency downsized, and while she kept her job, her big promotion to account executive got delayed indefinitely. She spent most of 2020 posting about adapting to the new normal and finding work-life balance, which apparently meant a lot of yoga videos and sourdough bread experiments. During family Zoom calls, she'd position her camera to show her trendy apartment in the background while complaining about how challenging it was to manage client relationships remotely. Meanwhile, I'd join from my basement office, usually with my camera off because I was monitoring customer support tickets or reviewing feature requests from my development team. Sophia's become such a hermit, Emma would say to the family. I keep telling her she needs to get out more. Maybe think about finding a real job. The tech industry is so unstable. I'd bite my tongue and nod along. What she didn't know was that Connect Pro had been featured in 3 industry publications by then, including a Forbes article about pandemic-era startups that are actually solving real problems. I'd been invited to speak at 2 virtual conferences and had venture capital firms reaching out about potential investment opportunities. But I wasn't ready to go public with my success yet. The truth was, I was enjoying the quiet growth phase. I loved being able to focus on the product without external pressure, loved building relationships with customers without having to worry about impressing investors or managing a board of directors. And maybe, if I'm being honest, I was enjoying having a secret that would blow my family's minds when I was ready to share it. By early 2021, I decided it was time to move out. Not because my parents were pressuring me, they were happy to have me around, and my mom liked having someone to cook for. But Connect Pro was generating enough revenue that I felt foolish not investing in a proper workspace. I found a 2-bedroom condo in Austin, Texas, where several of my remote employees were based. The tech scene there was growing, the cost of living was reasonable, and it felt like the right place to establish headquarters. I didn't make a big announcement about the move. Just mentioned casually during a family call that I was relocating for work opportunities. Emma immediately jumped in with advice about apartment hunting and decorating on a budget, assuming I was taking some entry-level tech job in Texas. Austin's perfect for someone just starting out in tech, she said. Very affordable, lots of networking, opportunities. Maybe you'll finally meet some people and develop some social skills. I nodded and thanked her for the advice, while sitting in the condo I'd just purchased outright. A 1,200 square foot space with floor-to-ceiling windows, a dedicated office, and a monthly mortgage payment that was less than what Emma paid in rent, because I'd put 60% down. The Austin move was exactly what Connect Pro needed. Being in the same time zone as more of my team members improved our collaboration, and the local tech community was incredibly welcoming. I joined a few entrepreneur groups, started attending meetups, and for the first time in my life, found myself surrounded by people who understood what I was building. It was at one of these meetups that I met Daniel, a software engineer who'd recently sold his previous startup to Microsoft. He was funny, brilliant, and completely unimpressed by tech industry status symbols, which I found refreshing after years of Emma's performative social media presence. "So what's your company do?" he asked during our first coffee date. I explained Connect Pro, expecting the usual polite nod and change of subject I got from non-tech people. Instead, his eyes lit up. "Wait, you built Connect Pro? My sister uses that for her catering business. She says it's the only social media tool that actually makes sense to her. That was the first time someone in my personal life had recognized my work, and it felt incredible. Daniel and I started dating, but I kept it casual when talking to my family. During video calls, I'd mention hanging out with friends or exploring the city without going into details. Emma would make comments about how nice it was that I was finally getting out of my shell and learning to be social. Meanwhile, Connect Pro kept growing. By the end of 2021, we had over 25,000 subscribers and were generating $420,000 in monthly recurring revenue. I hired a proper development team, a head of customer success, and even brought on a part-time CFO to help manage the financial side as we scaled. The platform had evolved far beyond my original vision. We'd added e-commerce integration, advanced analytics, automated customer service features, and even AI-powered content suggestions. Major business publications were writing about us regularly, and I'd been invited to keynote at SaaS conferences. But at home, I was still Sophia with her computer hobby. The breaking point started building during the holidays of 2021. Emma had been promoted to account executive finally, and she'd started dating someone she met through work, a guy named Brad who worked in business development and wore a lot of expensive watches. She brought him to Christmas dinner and spent the entire evening talking about their power couple potential and their plans to move in together. When relatives asked about me, Emma's new line was, "Sophia's doing her own thing down in Austin, still working with computers, but she seems happy. We keep telling her she should think about settling down, but you know how career-focused she is." Career-focused. As if my career was some cute little hobby I'd eventually grow out of. Brad, trying to be friendly, asked me what kind of tech work I did. "I run a small software company," I said. "We help businesses manage their social media." "Oh, cool. Like Hootsuite?" he said. "Similar concept, different approach," I replied. Emma jumped in immediately. "Sophia's always been really into the technical side of things, very detail-oriented. I keep telling her she should consider getting into the business side of tech. That's where the real money is." I nearly choked on my wine. Connect Pro's annual revenue was approaching $5 million, and she was giving me career advice about getting into the business side of an industry I was literally running a successful business in. But what really got to me was the look of pity on Brad's face. He nodded sympathetically, like I was some lost soul who needed guidance to find my way in the world. That night, lying in my childhood bed one last time before flying back to Austin, I made a decision. I was done hiding my success, not because I wanted to show off or prove anything to Emma, but because I was tired of letting her define my narrative. I was tired of being the family member everyone felt sorry for. I was 31 years old, running a multi-million-dollar company, in a happy relationship with someone who respected my work, and living exactly the life I wanted to live. It was time my family knew who I really was. But I wasn't going to make some grand announcement or send a press release. I was going to wait for the right moment, and when it came, I was going to let Emma discover the truth in the most natural way possible. I just didn't expect that moment would come at my cousin's wedding, in front of 150 people, with Emma in full mean girl mode. My cousin Rachel's wedding was supposed to be a celebration. Rachel and I had always been close. She was one of the few family members who never made me feel weird about being the computer girl. When she got engaged to Tom, a pediatric nurse she'd met at the hospital where she worked as a physician assistant, I was genuinely excited for her. The wedding was planned for early June 2022 at a beautiful venue in Napa Valley. Rachel had always dreamed of a wine country wedding, and her parents had saved for years to make it happen. It was going to be a long weekend. Rehearsal dinner Friday, wedding Saturday, and a casual brunch Sunday before everyone flew home. I flew in from Austin on Thursday, renting a car at SFO and driving up to the hotel where most of the family was staying. Connect Pro was practically running itself at this point. My team was incredible, our systems were solid, and I'd learned to delegate effectively. For the first time in years, I was taking a genuine vacation. Daniel had offered to come with me, but I wasn't ready to introduce him to the full chaos of my extended family yet. Trust me, I'd told him. One weekend with the Chens is enough to scare anyone away. I'm not that easily scared, he'd laughed, but I insisted on going solo this time. The rehearsal dinner was at a private room in one of Napa's most exclusive restaurants. Rachel looked radiant. Tom was clearly head over heels in love with her, and the atmosphere should have been perfect. Emma arrived with Brad, both of them dressed like they were attending a red carpet event rather than a casual family dinner. She'd posted at least 15 Instagram stories during their drive up from LA, all documenting their weekend getaway in wine country. I'd chosen a simple navy dress and had actually spent time on my hair and makeup for once. Living in Austin had been good for me. I'd started working out regularly, had developed an actual skincare routine, and felt more confident in my own skin than I ever had growing up. "Sophia!" Emma squealed when she saw me, pulling me into an overly dramatic hug. "You look so different. Austin must be treating you well. Are you finally dating someone?" "I'm seeing someone," I said casually. "His name's Daniel. He's a software engineer." "Oh, another tech person," she said with that familiar pitying smile. "Well, at least you'll have stuff to talk about." Brad extended his hand for a shake. "Emma tells me you're in tech too. What do you do?" "I run a software company," I said. Same answer as always. "That's so cool. Startup life, right? Long hours, uncertain income, but the potential for a big payout someday," he said knowingly. "I work with a lot of startups in my business development role. Most of them never make it, but the ones that do." He made a whistling sound and gestured like money flying away. Emma nodded along. "Sophia's always been willing to take risks. I'm more of a steady career path person myself, but I admire the entrepreneurial spirit." I wanted to tell them that Connect Pro was past the risky startup phase, that we were profitable and growing steadily, that I was making more money than both of them combined, but something held me back. Maybe it was the setting. Rachel's special weekend shouldn't be about my career. Maybe it was that I could see this conversation leading to Emma making it all about herself, as usual. So I just smiled and nodded. "Yeah, it's been an interesting journey." The conversation moved on, and the rest of the rehearsal dinner was lovely. Rachel's friends were warm and funny, Tom's family was down to earth and welcoming, and for a few hours I almost forgot about the familiar family dynamics that always left me feeling invisible. But Emma wasn't done. During the toasts, after Rachel's father gave a beautiful speech about watching his daughter grow into an amazing woman, Emma stood up with her wine glass. "I just want to say something about family," she began, and I felt my stomach drop. Emma's impromptu speeches were never good news for anyone, but Emma. "Rachel, you've always been such an inspiration to all of us cousins. You knew you wanted to help people, so you became a PA. You knew you wanted to find someone who shared your values, so you found Tom. You've always been so focused and determined." Murmurs of agreement around the table. So far, so good. "It's funny how different we all turned out," Emma continued, warming to her theme. "I mean, look at us cousins. Rachel's saving lives in healthcare. I'm building brands and helping companies grow their market presence. And Sophia. Oh no, Sophia's always marched to the beat of her own drum, still figuring things out, still exploring, still playing around with computers like she did when we were kids. But that's okay. We all develop at our own pace, right?" The table got quiet. Not the good kind of quiet. The awkward kind where everyone suddenly finds their wine glasses very interesting. Rachel looked mortified. "Emma, I don't think..." but Emma was on a roll now. I'm just saying, it's never too late to find your path. Sophia, maybe this year will be when you figure out what you really want to do with your life. Maybe you'll meet someone who can help you think about more practical career options. I felt heat rising in my cheeks, but I kept my voice steady. I'm pretty happy with my path, actually. Of course you are, Emma said with that condescending smile, and we're all proud of you for following your passion. It's just that sometimes passion doesn't pay the bills, you know? Sometimes you have to be realistic about market demand and financial stability. Brad nodded along like Emma was dispensing wisdom from on high. Several relatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Rachel looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Emma, my Uncle David said gently, maybe we should focus on celebrating Rachel tonight. You're absolutely right, Emma said quickly. I'm sorry, I just worry about family, you know? I want everyone to be successful and happy. She raised her glass toward Rachel. To Rachel and Tom, who show us what it looks like when you know what you want and go after it. Everyone drank to that, and the conversation moved on, but the damage was done. I spent the rest of the evening making polite conversation and pretending Emma's little speech hadn't bothered me, but inside, I was seething, still figuring things out, still playing around with computers, still exploring like I was some lost 22-year-old instead of a successful 32-year-old entrepreneur. After dinner, as people were filtering back to their hotel rooms, Rachel pulled me aside. Soph, I'm so sorry about Emma. I don't know what's gotten into her lately. It's fine, I said. It's Emma being Emma. It's not fine. You didn't deserve that. And for what it's worth, I think what you're doing is amazing. I may not understand all the technical stuff, but I know you're brilliant. And I know you're building something you care about. I hugged her tight. Thanks, Rach. That means a lot. Just promise me you won't let her get to you tomorrow? This weekend is supposed to be fun. I promised. But as I got ready for bed that night, I couldn't stop replaying Emma's words. The worst part wasn't the public humiliation. It was the realization that she genuinely saw me as some kind of charity case, someone to be pitied and guided toward a more realistic path. I lay awake thinking about all the times over the years when I'd bitten my tongue, when I'd let her define the narrative about my life, when I'd chosen peace over truth. I thought about ConnectPro's latest revenue numbers, about the acquisition offers I'd been getting from major tech companies, about the life I'd built that no one in my family really knew about, and I made a decision. If Emma wanted to keep pushing this narrative about my little computer hobby, she was going to get a reality check. I wasn't planning to be dramatic or vindictive. I was just done pretending to be less than I was to make other people comfortable. I had no idea that tomorrow would provide the perfect opportunity, or that Emma's own social media habits were about to become her downfall. Saturday morning dawned perfect. Clear skies, gentle breeze, and the kind of golden light that makes Napa Valley look like something out of a fairy tale. I put on my bridesmaid's dress, a gorgeous sage green that Rachel had chosen because it brings out your eyes, Soph. Did my makeup, and actually felt beautiful for the first time in a family gathering in years. The morning was busy with wedding preparations, and I threw myself into helping Rachel get ready. It felt good to focus on someone else's happiness, to be useful in ways that had nothing to do with work or family dynamics. Rachel was calm and radiant, and watching her get ready reminded me why I loved her so much. She was genuine, kind, and never made anyone feel small. Emma, meanwhile, was in full Instagram mode. She'd gotten her hair and makeup done professionally and was documenting every moment of the day with elaborate Instagram stories. Getting ready for my beautiful cousin's wedding, wine country vibes, family weekend goals. I noticed she was using ConnectPro's scheduling feature to post her stories at optimal times, something I'd programmed into the platform based on engagement data analysis. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I didn't think much of it at the time. The ceremony was beautiful. Rachel and Tom had written their own vows, which made half the wedding party cry, and the setting was absolutely magical. During the cocktail hour, I found myself relaxing and actually enjoying conversations with relatives I hadn't seen in years. Several people asked about my life in Austin, and I found myself giving more detailed answers than usual. I really love it there, I told my Aunt Linda. The tech community is incredible, and I've been able to grow my business in ways I never could have imagined. What kind of business? She asked. Software as a service, I said. We help small and medium businesses manage their digital marketing. That sounds fascinating, she said. Is it doing well? I hesitated, then decided to be honest. Really well, actually. Better than I expected when I started. Emma, who had been half listening while posing for pictures with Brad, inserted herself into the conversation. Sophia's always been optimistic about her projects. I keep telling her she should consider getting into marketing consulting. That's where the real money is in helping businesses grow. Aunt Linda looked confused. But isn't that what her software does? Sort of, Emma said dismissively. But there's a difference between building tools and actually understanding business strategy. Sophia's great at the technical stuff, but business growth requires a different skill set. I felt that familiar flash of irritation, but before I could respond, we were called to dinner. The reception was held in a gorgeous pavilion overlooking the vineyards, with string lights and flowers everywhere. Rachel had put me at a table with some of her college friends, which was perfect. They were smart, funny women who had interesting careers and asked thoughtful questions about my work. So you built a platform that helps businesses with social media? Asked Sarah, who worked in nonprofit management. That's exactly what we need. We're always struggling to maintain our online presence with our limited staff. I found myself explaining Connect Pro in detail for the first time all weekend, and it felt amazing to talk to people who understood why the work mattered. They asked smart questions about user experience, pricing models, and scalability challenges. For 45 minutes, I forgot about Emma entirely, but Emma hadn't forgotten about me. During the father-daughter dance, I was standing at the edge of the dance floor, watching Rachel and her dad and feeling genuinely happy for her, when Emma appeared beside me with Brad and a few of his friends who had driven up from LA for the wedding. "This is my sister Sophia," Emma said to the group, "the one I was telling you about who works in tech." "Cool," said one of Brad's friends, a guy named Tyler who worked in venture capital. "What do you do in tech?" "I run a software company," I said. "Early stage or growth stage?" Tyler asked. He clearly knew the industry. "Growth stage," I said carefully. "Nice. What's your ARR?" I paused. ARR was annual recurring revenue, a standard metric in the SaaS world. Tyler was asking a knowledgeable question, and I could either give him a real answer or deflect. "About 6 million," I said quietly. Tyler's eyebrows shot up. "Seriously? What's the company?" Emma was looking back and forth between us like we were speaking a foreign language. "Connect Pro," I said. "Social media management for small and medium businesses." Tyler's face lit up. "Holy shit! You're Sophia Chen? You built Connect Pro?" The group went quiet. Emma was staring at Tyler like he'd grown a second head. "You know Connect Pro?" she asked. "Know it?" "Dude, everyone in SMB software knows Connect Pro. It's like the gold standard for social media management. We looked at investing in them last year, but they're bootstrapped and not taking outside money." Tyler turned back to me. "That was a smart decision, by the way. The terms VCs are offering SMB SaaS companies right now are garbage." Emma's smile was frozen on her face. "I'm sorry, what?" Brad, who had been quiet during this exchange, suddenly spoke up. "Wait, Connect Pro is the platform Jessica uses for her boutique. She says it's incredible, saved her like 20 hours a week." "And my gym uses it too," added another friend. The owner says it's the best money he's ever spent on software. I could see Emma's mind working, trying to process what she was hearing. Connect Pro wasn't some little hobby project. It was a platform people actually knew about, actually used, actually recommended to others. But, Emma started, then stopped. I mean, how big is this company, exactly? Tyler laughed. Are you kidding? With 6 million in ARR, they're probably valued at what, 60 to 80 million? Maybe more if their growth metrics are good. The color drained from Emma's face. Actually, Tyler continued, turning back to me, I'd love to grab coffee sometime if you're ever in LA. Not for investment, I know you're not fundraising, but just to talk shop. What you've built is really impressive. I'd like that, I said and meant it. Brad was looking at Emma with confusion. Wait, I thought you said Sophia was just starting out in tech? Emma opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time in my life, I watched my sister, the golden child, the confident one, the family spokesperson, completely speechless. I think there might have been some miscommunication, I said gently. Before Emma could recover, the DJ announced the bouquet toss, and the moment fractured as all the single women were called to the dance floor. I participated half-heartedly, my mind still reeling from the last 10 minutes. As Rachel's bouquet sailed through the air, I found myself thinking about how strange it was that strangers understood my work better than my own family did. Tyler, Brad's friends, Rachel's college friends, they all got it immediately when I explained what Connect Pro was and why it mattered. But Emma, who had spent years dismissing my computer hobby, was only now realizing that maybe she didn't know as much about my life as she thought she did. I didn't catch the bouquet, but watching Emma's face during the bouquet toss, I realized I might have caught something even better. The moment when the family narrative about Sophia the lost soul finally started to crack. The real revelation was still coming, though, and it was going to happen in the most perfectly ironic way possible. The bouquet ended up in the hands of Rachel's college roommate, who shrieked with laughter and immediately FaceTimed her boyfriend to tell him he was next. The energy at the reception was high, the dance floor was packed, and everyone seemed to be having an amazing time. Everyone except Emma, who spent the next hour alternating between trying to get more information about Connect Pro from Tyler and shooting confused glances in my direction. I could practically see the wheels turning in her head, trying to reconcile the little sister she thought she knew with the woman Tyler had described as running a $60 million company. I decided to enjoy the rest of the evening and let Emma process whatever she needed to process. I danced with my cousins, chatted with Rachel's friends, and even had a surprisingly deep conversation with Tom's father about the challenges of running a small business in the digital age. The thing that kills me, he said, is how much time my restaurant spends on social media stuff. We know we need to be online, but none of us really know what we're doing, and hiring an agency is way too expensive. What kind of tools are you using now? I asked. Honestly, we're just posting directly to Facebook and Instagram whenever we remember. My daughter handles most of it, but she's busy with school, so it's pretty inconsistent. I pulled out my phone and showed him the Connect Pro interface. Something like this might help. You can schedule posts in advance, track which content gets the most engagement, and set up automated responses to common customer questions. He studied my phone screen intently. This looks perfect. What's it called? Connect Pro. There's a free trial if you want to test it out. I'm definitely going to look into this. Thank you so much. It was one of those moments that reminded me why I'd built the platform in the first place. Real people with real businesses who needed help but didn't have unlimited budgets or dedicated marketing teams. As the evening wound down, Emma cornered me near the bar. Soph, can we talk? Of course. She led me to a quieter corner of the pavilion, away from the music and chatter. I'm confused about something, she said, and for the first time all weekend, her voice didn't have that condescending edge. Tyler seemed to think your company is bigger than I realized. It's doing well, I said carefully. But when you say doing well, what does that mean exactly? Like, are you making a living from it? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. For all her confidence and social media savvy, she was genuinely confused about something that was a major part of my life, and for the first time, I felt less angry than sad about the disconnect between us. Emma, I'm making more than a living from it. Connect Pro generates about $6 million in revenue per year. She stared at me. $6 million? As in $6 million? As in $6 million. But how? I mean, when did this happen? How long have you been? I mean, are you telling me you're actually rich? I almost laughed at the way she said actually rich, like it was some kind of mythical state she'd never imagined I could achieve. I'm comfortable, I said. Very comfortable. But you never said anything. You never told us things were going so well. You never asked, I said simply. And when I tried to talk about my work, the conversation always seemed to move on to other topics. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then, is this why you could afford to move to Austin? I mean, I assumed you were struggling to make rent, living in some tiny apartment. I bought a condo, I said. Downtown Austin. 2 bedrooms, great view. You bought a condo? Her voice was getting higher. Like, you own property? I own property. But why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell me? It was such a genuinely bewildered question that I felt a pang of guilt. Emma could be self-centered and dismissive, but in this moment she seemed hurt that I'd kept this part of my life from her. Honestly? Because every time I tried to talk about my work, you treated it like a cute hobby I'd eventually grow out of. It got easier to just not share the details. Emma's face crumpled slightly. I never meant to. I mean, I was trying to be supportive. I thought I was helping by encouraging you to think about more stable career options. I know you thought you were helping, I said, but it didn't feel helpful. It felt like you didn't believe I could succeed at what I was passionate about. We stood there in silence for a moment, watching the last few couples on the dance floor swaying to a slow song. I feel like such an idiot, Emma said finally. You're not an idiot. You just didn't have the full picture. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? Like, genuinely happy with how your life turned out? It was such an unexpected question that I had to think about it for a moment. Yeah, I said. I really am. I love my work. I love where I live. I'm in a great relationship with someone who gets what I do. It's not the path anyone expected me to take, but it's exactly the life I wanted to build. Emma nodded slowly. I owe you an apology. A big one. For tonight. And for probably a lot of other times over the years. Emma? No, let me say this. I've been treating you like you needed my guidance, like you were the little sister who couldn't figure things out. But you figured things out just fine. Better than fine. You built something incredible, and instead of celebrating that, I've been... She paused, searching for words. I've been kind of awful, haven't I? I wanted to argue with her, to minimize it, to make her feel better. But she was right. And we both knew it. Sometimes, I said gently. But I should have been more direct about what was actually happening in my life. I let you make assumptions instead of correcting them. Still, she said, I should have asked better questions. I should have listened better. We might have had a real moment of connection then, a genuine breakthrough in our relationship. But then Emma's phone buzzed with a notification and she glanced down automatically. Her face went white. Oh shit, she whispered. What? She held up her phone. On the screen was her Instagram app, and I could see she had dozens of notifications, comments, DMs, tagged posts. "I think I fucked up," she said. "What do you mean?" With shaking hands, she opened her Instagram and showed me her story from earlier in the evening. It was a video she'd taken during cocktail hour, showing off the beautiful venue, the flowers, the general wedding gorgeousness. But in the background of the video, you could clearly hear her conversation with me and Aunt Linda. Specifically, you could hear her saying, "There's a difference between building tools and actually understanding business strategy. Sophia's great at the technical stuff, but business growth requires a different skill set." "Emma," I said slowly, "how many people follow you on Instagram?" "About 8,000, she said miserably. "And how many people saw this story?" She checked the metrics. 1,500 people, so far. I closed my eyes. In the span of 6 hours, Emma had gone from publicly dismissing my career to accidentally broadcasting that dismissal to 1,500 people, many of whom, as we were about to discover, were Connect Pro users themselves. Her DMs were filling up with messages from people who recognized my name, people who used Connect Pro for their businesses, people who were confused about why someone would be giving business advice to the founder of one of the most successful bootstrap startups in the SMB software space. "Sophia," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think I just humiliated myself in front of the entire internet." And that's when I realized that my quiet little family drama had just become something much, much bigger. Emma's phone kept buzzing. Every few seconds, another notification, another comment, another DM. She stared at the screen like it was a bomb that might explode at any moment. "What are people saying?" I asked. With trembling fingers, she started reading through the messages. "This one says, 'Wait, is this the Sophia Chen who founded Connect Pro? Why are you giving her business advice?'" Emma's voice was getting shakier. "This one says, 'Connect Pro literally saved my small business during the pandemic, and you're telling the founder she needs to understand business strategy better?'" She kept scrolling. "Oh God, this one. Ma'am, Sophia Chen is worth more than most people will make in their lifetime. Maybe sit this one out." I felt bad for Emma. I really did. But there was also a part of me that was fascinated to watch this unfold. For years, I'd been the invisible one, the one whose accomplishments didn't count, the one who needed guidance and advice from family members who had no idea what I actually did for a living. Now, strangers on the internet were defending me in ways my own family never had. "There's more," Emma said, her voice barely audible. "Someone posted a link to that Forbes article about Connect Pro. And someone else shared the TechCrunch piece from last year about bootstrap success stories." She looked up at me with devastated eyes. "Soph, there are articles about you in major publications?" "A few," I said. "A few? How many is a few?" I pulled out my phone and did a quick Google search for Sophia Chen Connect Pro. The results filled the screen: Forbes, TechCrunch, Inc. magazine, Entrepreneur, Fast Company. Emma stared at my phone. "You've been featured in Inc. magazine?" "Twice," I said quietly. "Twice." She said it like she was testing the word in her mouth. "My little sister has been featured in Inkier magazine twice, and I've been giving her career advice." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "Emma, maybe you should delete the story," I suggested. "I can't," she said miserably. "I mean, I can delete it now, but 1,500 people already saw it, and people are screenshotting it and posting it in the comments." She was right. Instagram stories disappear after 24 hours, but the internet is forever. People had already captured her dismissive comments and were sharing them with their own commentary. One particularly viral screenshot had been posted by Small Biz Success, an account with over 50,000 followers that shared entrepreneurship content. The caption read, "When family members don't realize you're the CEO, Connect Pro's Sophia Chen, getting business advice from someone who clearly hasn't done their homework." This is why so many entrepreneurs keep their success quiet. People make assumptions. Entrepreneur, life, Kosh Connect Pro. Char bootstrap success. The post already had over 200 comments and 1,500 likes. "Oh God," Emma whispered, reading over my shoulder. "This is everywhere." She wasn't wrong. The story was spreading across Twitter, LinkedIn, and even TikTok. Someone had created a TikTok video with the audio from Emma's Instagram story, overlaid with screenshots of Connect Pro's press coverage and My Forbes feature. The video was titled, "When Your Sister Doesn't Know You're the Main Character," and had already gotten 50,000 views. "I have to fix this," Emma said, starting to type frantically on her phone. "What are you doing?" "Posting an apology. I need to explain that I didn't know." "Emma, stop." I put my hand over her phone. "Don't post anything when you're panicked. It'll just make things worse." "But people think I'm some kind of monster who puts down her own sister." "Some people think that," I agreed. "But posting a frantic apology right now is just going to draw more attention to the situation." Emma looked like she was about to cry. "What do I do?" Before I could answer, my own phone started ringing. The caller ID showed Daniel's name. "I should take this," I told Emma. "Soph, are you okay?" Daniel's voice was concerned. "I just saw... Well, there's a lot of stuff circulating on Twitter about you and your sister." "You saw the Instagram story?" "I saw the Instagram story, the TikTok video, the LinkedIn posts, and about 15 different Twitter threads. Babe, you're trending." I looked around the wedding reception. Most of the guests were still dancing and celebrating, completely unaware that a small family drama had just exploded across social media. "Is it bad?" I asked. "For you?" "No, it's actually great. People are sharing Connect Pro like crazy, talking about bootstrap success stories, celebrating entrepreneurs who stay humble. Your mentions are overwhelmingly positive." "And for Emma?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "For Emma, it's not great. But it'll blow over. These things always do." After I hung up, Emma was staring at her phone with the expression of pure horror. "It's on LinkedIn now," she said. "My colleagues are seeing this. My boss follows that small biz success account." "Emma?" "Brad's friends are texting him asking if this is real. Tyler posted about it on his LinkedIn with the caption, 'Always do your research before giving advice.'" She sat down heavily on a nearby chair. "I've ruined everything." "You haven't ruined everything," I said, sitting down next to her. "You made a mistake, and it got amplified because social media amplifies everything, but it's not the end of the world." "Easy for you to say," she said bitterly. "You're coming out of this looking like a humble genius who stays quiet about her success. I'm coming out of this looking like an arrogant idiot who doesn't know what she's talking about." She wasn't wrong. The narrative that was emerging online was exactly that. Sophia Chen, the brilliant founder who stays so humble that even her own family doesn't know how successful she is, versus Emma, the dismissive sister who assumed she knew better. "I need to leave," Emma said suddenly, standing up. "I can't stay here. Everyone's going to be looking at their phones, seeing this stuff." "Emma, it's Rachel's wedding. You can't just leave." "I can't stay either. Every time someone looks at me, they're going to know I'm the sister who humiliated herself on the internet." I watched Emma spiral and felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of me was satisfied. For the first time in my life, the world was seeing Emma's dismissive attitude toward me, and they weren't buying it. But another part of me felt genuinely bad for her. She'd made a mistake, and the internet was not a forgiving place. "Look," I said, "let's get through tonight. Tomorrow, after everyone's had time to process, we can figure out next steps. Maybe you write a thoughtful post about assumptions and family dynamics and learning to ask better questions. But not tonight. And not while you're emotional. Emma nodded reluctantly. Okay. But Soph? Yeah. I really am sorry. Not just because it's all over the internet now, but because I've been a terrible sister. You accomplished something incredible, and instead of celebrating you, I've been. God, I've been such a bitch. It was the first time Emma had ever really acknowledged how she'd treated me over the years. And despite everything, the public humiliation, the viral videos, the LinkedIn posts, hearing her say that meant something. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the last few wedding guests swaying on the dance floor. So, Emma said finally, 6 million in revenue? About that, yeah. And you own the whole company? I own the whole company. Emma shook her head in amazement. My little sister, the millionaire. Multimillionaire, I corrected gently. She laughed, but it was a rueful sound. Of course you are. I woke up the next morning to 847 unread emails, 23 missed calls, and a text from Daniel that said simply, check Twitter. You're famous. Connect Pro's official Twitter account, which I'd barely been active on, had gained 12,000 followers overnight. Our website traffic was up 400%, and according to my head of customer success, we'd received over 200 new trial signups since the story broke. Emma's accidental social media disaster had turned into the best marketing campaign Connect Pro had ever had. I was scrolling through the mentions, most of them incredibly positive, celebrating the humble founder who built a successful company while staying grounded, when there was a soft knock on my hotel room door. Soph, it's me. I opened the door to find Emma standing in the hallway, still in her pajamas, holding 2 cups of coffee from the hotel lobby. I brought caffeine, she said, and a full apology. I let her in, and we sat on the edge of my bed, drinking coffee and staring at our phones like they were alien artifacts. It's everywhere, Emma said quietly. I mean, everywhere. Someone made a TikTok that has 500,000 views. There's a LinkedIn article called The Danger of Assumptions in Family Dynamics that uses us as a case study. I saw that one, I said. It was actually pretty thoughtful. The comments are brutal, though. Not for you. Everyone loves you. But for me. She trailed off. I'd seen the comments too. While most people were celebrating my success and discussing the broader themes of family dynamics and assumptions, Emma was getting roasted pretty hard. People were calling her everything from jealous to toxic to much worse things. I'm thinking about deleting all my social media accounts, she said. Don't do that, I said quickly. That'll just make it look like you're running away. Aren't I? Emma, listen to me. Yes, you made a mistake. Yes, it got amplified in a way that's embarrassing and uncomfortable. But you're not a bad person, and this will pass. She looked at me skeptically. How can you be so calm about this? I humiliated you in front of thousands of people. You did, I agreed. But you also accidentally did something amazing for my business. And more importantly, you gave us a chance to have a real conversation about our relationship for the first time in years. Emma was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about all the times I did this. All the times I dismissed what you were doing, or gave you advice you didn't ask for, or made assumptions about your life without actually asking questions. It wasn't just you, I said. I could have been more direct about what was happening in my life. I chose to keep things vague instead of having difficult conversations. But that was probably because I made it clear I wasn't really listening, Emma said. God, Soph, how did I become that person? How did I become someone who talks over her own sister instead of asking how she's doing? It was such a genuine question that I had to think about how to answer it. I think maybe because you were used to being the one with answers, I said finally. You were always the successful one, the one with the clear path, the one everyone looked up to. Maybe it became habit to be the advice giver instead of the question asker. Emma nodded slowly. And you were so quiet about your success that it reinforced that dynamic. I kept thinking I needed to help you figure things out because you never told me you'd already figured them out. Right. We both contributed to the miscommunication. Emma's phone buzzed with another notification. She glanced at it and winced. What now? I asked. Rachel texted, she wants to make sure I'm okay. She saw everything online and she's worried about me. That's sweet of her. It is. And it makes me feel even worse. I spent her rehearsal dinner being condescending to you, and now she's worried about me because my own behavior came back to bite me. Emma stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Napa Valley landscape. I need to figure out how to handle this, she said. I can't just pretend it didn't happen, but I also can't spend the next week posting frantic apologies. What does your gut tell you to do? My gut tells me to write one honest post acknowledging what happened, apologizing genuinely, and then focus on being a better sister going forward instead of trying to manage my image online. That sounds right to me. Emma turned back to face me. Will you help me write it? Of course. We spent the next hour crafting a thoughtful Instagram post. Nothing too long, nothing defensive, nothing that tried to excuse her behavior. Just an acknowledgement that she'd made assumptions about my career without asking the right questions, an apology for the dismissive way she'd spoken about my work, and a commitment to doing better. I want to say something about how proud I am of you, Emma said as we edited the draft. Because I am. I'm incredibly proud of you, and I should have said that years ago. You can say that, I said. But don't make it too much about me. The people who are mad at you want to see that you understand what you did wrong, not just that you're praising me now. Emma nodded. Right. This isn't about making you look good. You already look good. This is about me taking responsibility. The final post was simple. I owe my sister and all of you an apology. Yesterday, I was caught on video giving business advice to my sister Sophia without realizing that she's the founder of Connect Pro, a multi-million-dollar company that thousands of small businesses rely on. My assumption that she needed my guidance says a lot more about my own biases than it does about her capabilities. Sophia has built something incredible while staying humble about her success, and instead of celebrating her achievements, I made assumptions based on outdated information and poor listening. I'm sorry to her, and I'm sorry to everyone who saw me dismiss someone without understanding what they'd accomplished. I'm committed to asking better questions and making fewer assumptions going forward. And Sophia, I'm incredibly proud of you and the company you've built. How does that sound? Emma asked. Perfect, I said. She posted it, then immediately put her phone face down on the bed. Okay, it's out there. Now what? Now we go to brunch with the family and have a normal day, I said. And we see what happens. The wedding brunch was held on the hotel's terrace, with mimosas and a gorgeous spread of food overlooking the vineyards. It should have been a relaxed, celebratory end to the weekend, but I could feel the tension as soon as Emma and I walked in together. Word had spread. Not everyone had seen the viral social media explosion, but enough people had that there was definitely an undercurrent of, "Did you hear about Emma and Sophia?" Conversations happening at various tables. Rachel rushed over to us immediately. Are you both okay? She asked, hugging us each in turn. I saw some stuff online, and I just want to make sure everyone's all right. We're fine, I said. We actually had a really good conversation this morning. The best conversation we've had in years, Emma added. Rachel looked relieved. Good. I was worried this was going to turn into some big family drama, and honestly, after how perfect yesterday was, I just wanted everyone to end the weekend on a good note. My parents approached our little group, and I could tell by their expressions that they'd seen the social media coverage too. Girls, my mom said carefully, we've been hearing some interesting things about your business situation, Sophia. What kind of interesting things? I asked. My dad held up his phone. Your cousin Jennifer sent us some articles about your company. We had no idea it was so substantial. How substantial? My mom asked. These articles mention millions of dollars, but it seems what? Emma asked, her voice sharper than necessary. It seems hard to believe, my mom finished. Not that we don't believe you, honey, she added quickly to me. It's just that you never mentioned the scope of what you were building. I took a deep breath. Connect Pro generates about $6 million in annual revenue. I own the company outright. No investors. We have 32 employees and serve over 25,000 small businesses. My parents stared at me. 6 million, my dad repeated slowly. 6 million, I confirmed. And you never told us? I tried to tell you, I said gently. I talked about my software company, about helping businesses with social media, about the platform growing, but the conversations always moved on to other topics. My mom looked genuinely hurt. We would have celebrated with you if we'd known. Would you have? Emma asked, because yesterday at the rehearsal dinner, when Tyler was talking about Sophia's success, the whole family looked confused. Like you couldn't process that she might have actually built something significant. It was a fair point, and my parents didn't have a good answer for it. We're sorry, my dad said finally. We clearly weren't paying close enough attention to what you were telling us about your work. It's okay, I said. I could have been more direct about the numbers and the scale. I tend to downplay things. That's an understatement, Emma muttered, but she was smiling when she said it. Uncle David joined our conversation, having clearly overheard at least part of it. I have to ask, he said to me. Are you hiring? Because my son just graduated with a computer science degree, and after reading about your company online, it sounds like exactly the kind of place he'd want to work. We're always looking for good engineers, I said. Have him send me his resume. What about marketing positions? Asked my cousin Sarah. I just finished my MBA and I'm job hunting. Sarah, Emma protested. You can't just hit up Sophia for jobs at her company. Why not? Sarah laughed. She's family, she runs a successful company, and I need work. Seems like good networking to me. And just like that, the dynamic shifted. Instead of Sophia, the family charity case, I was suddenly Sophia, the successful entrepreneur who might be able to help other family members with their careers. It was such a dramatic reversal that I almost got whiplash. Tyler, Brad's friend from the night before, came over to our table with his phone in hand. Sophia, I hope you don't mind, but I posted about Connect Pro on my LinkedIn last night, and I've had 3 portfolio companies ask me for introductions. Are you open to potential partnerships? Depends on the partnerships, I said. But sure, send me the details. Emma watched this exchange with a mixture of amazement and something that might have been pride. This is so weird, she said quietly to me. 24 hours ago, I was giving you career advice. Now people are asking you for business advice and job opportunities. The facts didn't change, I pointed out, just people's perception of the facts. That's what makes it so weird. You were the same person yesterday that you are today. I just didn't see it. Brad approached our table looking slightly sheepish. Emma, I owe you an apology, he said. I went along with the conversation last night about Sophia needing career guidance, and that was completely out of line. I should have done my homework before making assumptions. Emma looked surprised. You don't need to apologize. I was the one making assumptions. We both were, he said. But after talking to Tyler and doing some research on Connect Pro, I realize how successful your sister is, and I'm embarrassed that I participated in that conversation. He turned to me. Sophia, I'm sorry. What you've built is incredible, and you didn't deserve to be talked about like you needed career help. Thank you, I said. I appreciate that. After Brad walked away, Emma shook her head. Even my boyfriend is apologizing to you, she said. This really is the most humbling experience of my life. Maybe that's not entirely a bad thing, I suggested. Emma considered this. Maybe not. I clearly needed some humbling. As the brunch wound down, I found myself in a strange position. For the first time in my adult life, my family was treating me like someone whose opinions mattered, whose achievements were worth celebrating, whose advice might be valuable. It felt good, but it also felt a little hollow. Nothing about me had changed overnight. I was the same person who had been building Connect Pro for years, the same person who had been trying to share my excitement about my work at family gatherings, the same person who had been dismissed and overlooked for so long. The only thing that had changed was that strangers on the internet had validated what I'd been trying to tell my family all along. As we were getting ready to leave, Rachel pulled me aside. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For not asking better questions about your life, for not pushing back when Emma was being dismissive, for not celebrating your success the way I should have. Rachel, you've always been supportive. I've been passively supportive, she interrupted. I never made Emma stop when she was being condescending to you. I never asked for details about your business because I assumed it wasn't a big deal. I let the family dynamic continue instead of challenging it. I hugged her. You've been a great cousin and a great friend. You don't need to apologize for not being psychic about the details of my career. Maybe not, she said. But I'm going to do better going forward, starting with actually reading those articles about your company so I can understand what you've built. As I drove back to San Francisco to catch my flight to Austin, I felt emotionally exhausted. The weekend had been a roller coaster. The dismissive comments at the rehearsal dinner, the accidental social media explosion, the family recalibrations, the sudden shift from being treated like the lost sheep to being treated like the golden goose. But underneath the exhaustion was something I hadn't felt in years when it came to my family: hope. Emma and I had had the most honest conversation of our adult lives. My parents had acknowledged that they hadn't been paying attention to my achievements. Extended family members were suddenly interested in what I'd built. It had taken a viral social media incident to get there, but maybe that was what it took. Maybe some things can only change when they're forced into the light. My phone rang as I was sitting in the airport waiting for my flight. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. How are you holding up? He asked. Tired, I said. But good, I think. Emma and I actually had a breakthrough. That's great. Are you ready to come home to Austin and get back to normal life? I thought about it. Normal life seemed almost boring after the intensity of the weekend. Actually, I said, I think normal life might be overrated. This weekend was messy and uncomfortable, but it also felt like the first time my family saw me clearly in years. So you're okay with being internet famous for a few days? I laughed. I'm okay with people understanding what Connect Pro is and why it matters. The internet fame part can fade whenever it wants to. But as I boarded the plane back to Austin, I had a feeling that things had shifted permanently. Not just with my family, but with how I thought about sharing my success. Maybe it was time to stop being quite so humble about what I'd built. The week after Rachel's wedding was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Connect Pro's social media accounts were flooded with new followers. Our customer support team was fielding hundreds of questions from potential new clients, and I was getting interview requests from podcasts, business publications, and even a few TV shows. This is insane, said David, my head of customer success, during our Monday morning team meeting. We've signed up more new customers in the past 3 days than we usually get in a month. What's the quality like? I asked. Are these people who actually need the platform, or are they just curious because of the viral story? That's the crazy part, said Monica, our lead developer. They're high-quality signups. Small business owners who genuinely need social media management help. It's like the story gave them permission to admit they needed help with their digital marketing. Sarah, my business consultant, pulled up our analytics on the conference room screen. Revenue is up 23% this week alone, she said, and based on the trial-to-paid conversion rates we're seeing, this could translate to a permanent bump in our monthly recurring revenue. I stared at the numbers. Emma's accidental social media disaster had generated more business growth than any marketing campaign I'd ever run. Are we prepared to handle this scale? I asked. We'll need to expand the customer support team, David said, and probably bring on 2 more developers to handle the increased server load. Do it, I said. Let's make sure we can deliver excellent service to all these new customers. After the team meeting, I sat in my office looking out at the Austin skyline and trying to process how much had changed in 5 days. The story was still circulating on social media, though it was starting to fade from the trending topics. But the business impact was real and lasting. My phone rang. Emma's name appeared on the screen. How are you holding up? I asked when I answered. Surprisingly well, she said. My post got a lot of positive responses. People seem to appreciate that I owned up to my mistakes, instead of making excuses. That's great. And Soph? I've been thinking about what you said, about asking better questions. So I want to ask you something, and I want a real answer. Okay. What's it like? Running a company that big, having that much responsibility, making decisions that affect thousands of customers and dozens of employees? It was such a thoughtful question, the kind of question she'd never asked me before, that I had to take a moment to consider how to answer it. It's incredible and terrifying at the same time, I said finally. I love the problem-solving aspect, and I love that we're genuinely helping small businesses succeed. But there are days when I lie awake at night worrying about everything that could go wrong. Do you ever miss being an employee? Having someone else make the big decisions? Never, I said immediately. Even on the hardest days, I can't imagine working for someone else now. Building something from scratch, seeing it grow, knowing that every customer we help is a real person with a real business. It's addictive. That sounds amazing, Emma said, and she sounded like she meant it. It is amazing. But it's also lonely sometimes. Most people don't understand the pressure, or the constant decision-making, or the way your personal identity gets tied up with the success of the company. Is that why you kept it quiet for so long? The loneliness? I thought about that. Partly, but also because I was afraid that if I talked about it too much, people would think I was bragging, or they'd start treating me differently. I liked being able to have normal conversations with family without everything being about my business. But we weren't having normal conversations, Emma pointed out. We were having conversations where I talked and you listened, where I gave advice and you nodded along. That's not the same thing. She was right. I want to have different conversations going forward, Emma continued. I want to understand your world better. Would you be willing to explain more about the business side of what you do? Not because I think you need my advice, but because I want to learn. I'd love that, I said, and meant it. We talked for another 30 minutes about Connect Pro's business model, the challenges of managing a remote team, and the decision-making process behind major product features. It was the first time Emma had ever asked detailed questions about my work, and it felt like we were finally talking as equals instead of as advice giver and advice receiver. After we hung up, I got a text from Tyler, Brad's friend from the wedding. 3 of my portfolio companies want to integrate with Connect Pro. Are you interested in discussing API partnerships? I forwarded the message to my development team with a note. Looks like the viral weekend is turning into real business opportunities. But the most meaningful message came from an unexpected source. My high school computer science teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had somehow found my email address and sent me a long note about how proud she was of what I'd accomplished. I always knew you had something special, she wrote. You were so focused and determined, even as a 16-year-old. Seeing what you've built with Connect Pro reminds me why I love teaching. Moments like this when former students go out and change the world. I printed her email and pinned it to the bulletin board in my office, right next to a photo of my team at our last company retreat. That afternoon, I got a call from a reporter at Inc. magazine. We'd like to do a feature story about Connect Pro and the viral weekend, she said. But we want to focus on the business lessons, how family dynamics can impact entrepreneurs, the challenge of staying humble while scaling a company, the marketing power of authentic storytelling. I'm interested, I said, but I want to make sure the story doesn't just focus on the drama. Connect Pro is a serious business solving real problems for thousands of customers. Absolutely, she said. That's exactly the angle we want to take. The family story is interesting, but the real story is what you've built and how you've built it. After the call, I realized something had shifted in how I thought about media attention. Instead of seeing it as an unwelcome distraction from the work, I was starting to see it as an opportunity to share the Connect Pro story more widely and potentially help other entrepreneurs who were struggling with similar challenges. Maybe it was time to stop hiding my success behind humility and start using my platform to help other people build their own companies. That evening, Daniel came over with takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. You seem different, he said as we sat on my couch eating pad thai and spring rolls. Different how? More confident. More visible, I guess. Like you're not trying to make yourself smaller anymore. I thought about that. I think you're right. This whole weekend forced me to stop downplaying what I've accomplished. It's strange. I spent years trying to be humble about Connect Pro's success, but seeing other people celebrate it made me realize that humility and self-promotion aren't the same thing. What do you mean? I can be humble about my role in the company's success while still being proud of what we've built. I can acknowledge that I've been lucky and had help, while still owning the fact that I worked incredibly hard and made good decisions. Daniel smiled. That sounds like growth. It feels like growth, and it feels like the beginning of something new. I was right about that. The week had shown me that there was a whole world of entrepreneurs, business owners, and ambitious people who were interested in Connect Pro's story and could learn from my experience. Maybe it was time to step into that role more intentionally. 3 months later, I was standing on a stage at South by Southwest, looking out at an audience of 800 entrepreneurs, developers, and business owners. The conference had invited me to give a keynote about bootstrap entrepreneurship and authentic growth strategies. 6 months earlier, the idea of public speaking would have terrified me. But something had shifted after the wedding weekend. I'd realized that my story, both the business success and the family dynamics, could be valuable to other people who were building companies while navigating complex personal relationships. How many of you have family members who don't understand what you do for work? I asked the audience. A forest of hands shot up, accompanied by knowing laughter. How many of you have been given career advice by people who have no idea what your industry actually involves? Even more hands and louder laughter. I thought so. Today, I want to talk about building a successful company while managing the assumption that you don't know what you're doing. I told the story of Connect Pro's growth, the wedding weekend revelation, and the lessons I'd learned about communication, family dynamics, and the difference between humility and invisibility. The audience was engaged, asking thoughtful questions and sharing their own experiences with family misunderstandings and professional assumptions. After the talk, I was surrounded by entrepreneurs who wanted to share their stories and ask for advice. A woman named Jessica told me about her successful e-commerce business that her parents still referred to as her online hobby. A man named David described how his relatives kept asking when he was going to get a real job, despite the fact that his consulting firm employed 12 people. "It's like they can't see what's right in front of them," Jessica said. "They can't," I agreed, "because they're looking through the lens of their own experience and expectations. But that doesn't mean you have to stay invisible. You can choose to share more about what you're building." "But how do you do that without seeming like you're showing off?" David asked. "You focus on the impact," I said. "Instead of talking about revenue numbers or company valuation, talk about the problems you're solving and the people you're helping. Make it about the work, not the success metrics." After the conference, I flew back to Austin feeling energized in a way I hadn't experienced before. Public speaking had always seemed like something other entrepreneurs did, the extroverted ones, the natural performers, the people who were comfortable being the center of attention. But I'd realized that I didn't need to be a natural performer to have something valuable to share. I just needed to be honest about my experience and helpful to people who were facing similar challenges. Emma called me that evening. "I saw the video of your SXSW talk," she said. "Soph, you were incredible up there." "Thanks. It was nerve-wracking but fun." "I keep thinking about what you said about choosing to share more instead of staying invisible. It made me realize that I've been doing the opposite. I've been sharing too much about the wrong things." "What do you mean?" "All my social media posts about work have been about the surface stuff, the networking events, the office celebrations, the industry awards. But I never post about the actual work I do, or the clients I help, or the problems I solve." She paused. I think I was so focused on looking successful that I forgot to talk about what success actually means. Emma had been doing some soul searching since the wedding weekend. She'd taken a new position at a different agency, one that focused on helping nonprofits and social impact organizations with their marketing. It was a better fit for her values, even though it meant a slight pay cut. "I'm learning to ask better questions at work too," she continued. "Instead of assuming I know what clients need, I spend more time listening to what they're actually trying to accomplish." "How's that working out?" "Really well. My new boss says I'm the most thorough strategist she's ever worked with. Turns out listening is a superpower in marketing." I laughed. Who would have thought? I know, right? It only took a viral social media disaster to teach me how to communicate properly. Over the next few months, Connect Pro continued to grow steadily. The attention from the wedding weekend had generated lasting business value, but more importantly, it had connected me with a community of entrepreneurs and business owners who were facing similar challenges. I started writing a monthly newsletter about bootstrap entrepreneurship, sharing lessons learned and mistakes made without sugarcoating the difficulties. The newsletter grew to over 15,000 subscribers, many of whom reached out to share their own stories. I also began mentoring other entrepreneurs through organizations like SCORE and the local Small Business Development Center. It was incredibly fulfilling to help people who were earlier in their journey, and it reminded me regularly why I'd started Connect Pro in the first place. Daniel and I moved in together, finding a house with enough space for both of us to work from home comfortably. He was endlessly supportive of my newfound comfort with public visibility, even when it meant more travel and speaking engagements. "You're like a completely different person than you were a year ago," he said one evening as I was preparing for a podcast interview about women in tech. "Different how?" "More yourself, if that makes sense, like you're not trying to hide parts of who you are anymore." He was right. For years, I'd compartmentalized my life: family Sophia, work Sophia, social Sophia, as if the different aspects of my identity couldn't coexist. But the wedding weekend had forced all those compartments to collapse, and I'd realized that being fully myself in all contexts was much more comfortable than trying to be different versions of myself for different audiences. The most surprising development was my relationship with my parents. They'd started asking detailed questions about Connect Pro, and my dad had even read several of the business articles about the company. "I'm sorry we didn't understand what you were building," my mom said during one of our video calls. "We were so focused on traditional career paths that we couldn't see how successful you'd become in a field we didn't understand." "It's okay," I said. "I could have been clearer about the scope and impact of what I was doing." "But we should have asked better questions," my dad added. "We should have been more curious about your work instead of making assumptions." The family dynamics had shifted permanently. I was no longer the one who needed guidance and advice. I was the one offering insights about entrepreneurship, business strategy, and career development. It was a strange reversal, but it felt natural in a way the old dynamic never had. As I sit here in my Austin office, 2 years after that weekend in Napa Valley, I'm struck by how much can change when you stop hiding who you are. Connect Pro now serves over 50,000 small businesses, generates more than $12 million in annual revenue, and employs 68 people across 12 states. We've been featured in major publications, won several industry awards, and I've been invited to speak at conferences around the world. But the numbers aren't the most important part of the story. The most important part is that I'm no longer living in the shadows of my own success. I'm not downplaying my achievements or apologizing for my ambitions. I'm not letting other people define what my life looks like or what my priorities should be. Emma and I have coffee over video chat every Sunday morning. She asks thoughtful questions about business challenges, and I ask about her work with social impact organizations. She's become one of my closest advisors, not because she gives me answers I couldn't find elsewhere, but because she knows me well enough to ask the questions I'm not asking myself. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't made that Instagram story?" she asked during one of our recent calls. "Honestly, I think we would have figured it out eventually," I said. "Maybe it would have taken longer and maybe it wouldn't have been as dramatic, but I was getting tired of being invisible. Something would have forced the conversation." "I'm glad it happened the way it did, even though it was humiliating at the time," Emma said. "It forced both of us to be more honest about who we are and what we want from our relationship." She's right. The viral moment was embarrassing and uncomfortable, but it cracked open a family dynamic that had been limiting both of us for years. I've learned that humility and visibility aren't opposites. You can be proud of what you've accomplished while still acknowledging the role of luck, timing, and other people's help in your success. You can share your achievements without being arrogant, and you can offer advice without being condescending. I've also learned that people can't celebrate your success if they don't know about it. For years, I complained internally about feeling invisible and underappreciated by my family, but I was the one choosing invisibility. I was the one keeping my achievements vague and my impact unclear. Connect Pro's success has opened doors I never expected. Speaking opportunities, mentoring relationships, media coverage, and business partnerships. But the success I'm most proud of is the success I've had in learning to show up authentically in all areas of my life. I'm no longer the quiet sister who sits in the corner while everyone else dominates the conversation. I'm not the family member everyone feels sorry for. I'm not hiding my accomplishments behind false modesty or downplaying my expertise to make other people comfortable. I'm Sophia Chen. I'm 34 years old. I built a multi-million-dollar company that helps thousands of small businesses succeed. I'm in a loving relationship with someone who sees and values all parts of who I am. I'm a mentor, a speaker, a leader, and an entrepreneur. And I'm no longer apologizing for any of it. If you've made it this far in my story, I want you to know that your achievements matter. Your work matters. Your expertise matters. Don't let anyone convince you that you need to stay small to make them comfortable. Ask for what you want. Share what you've accomplished. Take up space. Speak up when people make assumptions about your life or your capabilities. And if you have family members who dismiss your dreams or minimize your achievements, remember that their limitations aren't your limitations. Their understanding of success doesn't have to define your relationship with your own accomplishments. Sometimes the people who love us can't see us clearly because they're looking through the lens of old stories and outdated expectations. But you don't have to stay trapped in those stories. You can write a new one. You can choose visibility over invisibility, authenticity over accommodation, truth over peacekeeping. You can build something amazing, share it with the world, and refuse to apologize for your success. And if your sister accidentally makes you go viral in the process, well, sometimes that's exactly what needed to happen. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about family dynamics, entrepreneurship, and finding your voice. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated by people who should have been your biggest supporters? How did you handle it? What would you have done in my situation? And if you're building something amazing that your family doesn't understand yet, keep building. Keep growing. Keep believing in what you're creating even when the people closest to you can't see it yet. Your story matters. Your work matters. You matter. Until next time, keep building something beautiful.